I had been going through all this, right? And so in 2008, we ran into the mortgage crisis, and I had been in the business at that time for maybe 6 years or so. My career was nearly nowhere near where it is today, and so I was affected by it drastically, and I lost a few houses and some cars, and I was back at square number one. Literally back at square number one. However, this time around, I already had a child and I already had got married, and so I could have easily said, this is not for me. This is not going to work out. I'm in the wrong industry. But at that time, again, I felt somewhere in my heart that told me this is where you need to be. And it was a really, really difficult time. Time that I wish on nobody. And mind you, I don't have a degree. I don't have a bachelor's or a master's or a doctor's. However, 15 years later, my employees do. People that work for me have those degrees now, and it's a remarkable, remarkable story. My wife, was pretty insistent that she wanted me to apply in law enforcement, border patrol, customs, some stability for the family, which I totally get, and I totally understand where she was coming from, and I think that's a pretty normal feeling for most women that are housewives. And so, and I probably, if it didn't work out, they probably would have left me, right? Thank God that's not the story today, but I was super stubborn that I was like, I gotta do this. And so, I was left without a job, and mortgage companies weren't hiring. I called my mentor and I said, hey, where can I go work? And because remember, I've been doing this since I was 21. I don't know how to do anything else. And so he says, why don't you go to a company called Guild Mortgage? So I gave him a call. Never forget the call. I called the gentleman, and I called them thinking that they were going to open up an office for me. He's like, son, we're not opening any offices right now. Like, don't you see what's going on around you? So he's like, no, have a nice day, bye. Boom, he hung up. I was like, oh man, I was super bummed out. The next day I got up and I was like, well, we'll just try another person, And you know what? That's kind of been my attitude. There are certain things that I was sharing with somebody else earlier on, where there was certain personality traits that I thought were weaknesses growing up, which I know now are my strengths, right? And I've also gotten to know myself and where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are at. But the reason I'm saying that is because when they turned me down and they said no, most people just get discouraged and be like, okay, that was crazy. Let me just get back to reality. Me, I didn't really care what that person said. I was like, I'm just gotta go through enough no's to get a yes. Ended up Googling the vice president's cell phone number. How I got that is the craziest things, but I got it. I called her, and she got a liking into me. These are, in my opinion, where my kind of faith rolls in, because people call those moments of luck. I call those moments of divine favor. Divine favor for me can be described as a point in time in your lifetime where God looks upon you and miracles happen. And so I gave her a call. She answered her cell phone call. She got a liking into me. 25 minutes later, she says, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to give you a job. I'm here in El Centro. She's in San Diego at the corporate office. She gave me a job over the phone. Someone had just told me no yesterday. She goes, but I'm gonna have you go work out of another office, and you can just be a loan officer. At that time, I didn't care about a title or a position. I just needed to make money to feed my family and put food in my fridge. And while I was doing all this, I was still trying to do anything I can to make some money to pay the rent. I got a job, and they didn't open up an office. It didn't make sense for them to open up an office, because how can they open up an office, spend all this money on there's no market share for the company? So here's a 27-year-old guy. I think about it now, and I think, wow, if somebody gave me a car and now the guy was 27 years old, he's like, I'm going to create a market share for you, and I'm going to be the #1 mortgage company in town. I'd probably be like, hey, bud, I'm busy, call me back later. But I didn't take no for an answer. And so I got some credentials. I went back home. At this time, I didn't have any money. I was broke. I was living on the east side of town, and I went to Walmart with $100, bought a printer and bought a desk. Very inexpensive. It was just there, and I got a little banner and I put it up on my table, and I was like, this is my workplace, like this is my office, and I was super excited and pumped up. And like the next day I woke up and it's like, now what? Like, what do I do now? Got a job now, I gotta go out and get business. But how am I gonna get business if I don't have an office? And so 3 months went by, probably did nothing. I couldn't generate any business because I didn't have any money for marketing or advertisement. But during those 3 months, I was like a psycho man in my office, and my wife would tell me, like, knock on my door and be like, what are you doing in there? Like, get out already. Like, you have no clients. What the heck are you doing there? During that time, I decided that I would become the master at my industry. I would know the guidelines, know rates, how stocks and bonds work. And so it was a type of self-development, if you will. I said, well, I have no money, I have no budget, how can I do all this? So I started thinking outside the box, and I started fax blasting anybody that had a fax machine. I don't care if it was a Chinese food restaurant, Walmart. If they had a fax, I was blasting them my flyer, because my flyer was free. I could create the flyer. If I downloaded every realtor's cell phone numbers and started doing text blasting, I get realtors that would text me back and be like, hey, how'd you get my number? Please stop texting me. Like, take my number off your call list. And I started just doing anything, anywhere I was at, everywhere I was at, I would tell people that I'm a mortgage banker. Like walking around with the bullhorn on my mouthpiece. And my wife will tell you stories that when we first got married, like I'd be asleep and she'd be like, you were talking about refinancing rate of return, like, what are you talking about? Does this guy ever sleep? That's all he wants to be talking about. I'd go to the birthday party and she'd give me a little coaching before it got off, and she'd say, we're gonna get off, but we're just gonna enjoy the party. Don't talk to anybody about mortgages, But in my mind, it's like I need to tell as much people as possible what I do. You know what I mean? And so I've always been kind of had that perseverance, regardless of opposition.